There are two very important windows that open up that allow your body and your brain to be more suggestible to information. That is, when you wake up in the morning, your brain waves go from very slow delta to theta to alpha to beta. And when you go to bed at night, you go from beta to alpha to theta to delta. So you slide up the scale when you wake up, and you slide down the scale when you go to bed at night. And most people, when they go to bed at night, they just go from beta, boom, right down the delta. They fall very quickly. You can teach people then how to just sit and slow everything down and begin to visualize, begin to affirm, begin to change their thought, to begin to work with their body. So what do most people do when they wake up in the morning? Your brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact, a memory bank of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment. So people wake up in the morning and they start thinking about their problem. And those problems are memories in the brain that are connected to certain people and certain things at certain times and places. So they wake up in the morning and they start thinking in the past. Now, the moment they start having those thoughts, every one of those experiences has an emotion associated with it. So when they start thinking about their problems or the problems of the world or the problems of their body or whatever it is, problems at work, they all of a sudden start to feel the correlated emotion. So now their body's in the past. And then all of a sudden they say, well, wait a second, I got to get back to myself. So they start thinking about their problems, and here come the emotions. And they say, oh, now I feel like me again. So those emotions then begin to influence our thoughts. Like if you feel like a failure, you're going to think you're a failure. And when you think you're a failure, you're going to feel like a failure. And when you feel like a failure, you're going to think more thoughts equal to being a failure. And the cycle of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking causes you to say, I am a failure. And the repetition of that process of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking conditions the body to become the mind of that emotion. Now the emotion is stored in the body. Now the body's literally in the past. And the body, as the unconscious mind, doesn't know the difference between the actual experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that you're creating by thought alone. Your body's believing it's in the same experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So then getting people out of the past is the work. Now you are really connected to everything that's known in your life. And then you run through a series of routine behaviors. You move around your house the same way you always do. You do all the same things. You go to the same grocery store. You buy the same food. You shop the same way. You do all these, you watch the same TV shows, and people do this for 10, 20, 30 years. Now, their body's on autopilot, and their body's dragging them into a predictable future based on what they did in the past. We could actually take their yesterday and lift it up and set it on their tomorrow. Which means then they've lost their free will. There's only one place that you have to train a person to be so that they're not in the known, they're in the unknown, and that's called the present moment. So people get very happy being unhappy because they would rather cling to their unhappiness than take a chance and possibility. So stepping into that river and beginning to make a new choice and understanding that that uncertainty, that unpredictability is the unknown. So now you're in the unknown and the survival gene is switched on. Of course, people are going out of the infinite possibilities that exist in the quantum field. They're going to select the worst scenario in their mind, right? The quantum model of reality is about causing an effect. That means the moment you start feeling worthy and abundant, you're generating wealth. The moment you're in love with yourself and you're in love with life, you create an equal. The moment you start feeling gratitude and wholeness, your healing actually starts to begin. And over time, as you overcome those aspects of yourself, you're actually becoming somebody else. There's a becoming process that begins to take place. And some people do it very quickly. Other people, it just takes some time. But once you understand the formula, and once you understand what it all means, you start seeing people make some pretty big changes. And we just had a group of scientists study a bunch of our brain scans in Bond University in Australia. Thousands and thousands of brain scans. She called me up and she said, we have never seen a community of people have the ability to change their brain waves so quickly. Like 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 9 seconds. They've practiced it enough times that they know how to silence the critic in their brain. That thinking is the analytical mind. And as you learn how to change your brainwaves, that default mode network, that voice in your head goes away. And our research shows that it goes away during the meditation, and then it goes away for the majority of the days. When I do my inner work, the most important thing for me is to settle into that present moment, because when there's significant biological changes that are taking place in the brain and the heart, Sometimes you feel so amazing you don't want anything any longer. You feel like you have everything. And that's what I call the natural state of being. There's coherence, high level of order in the brain. The brain is synchronized. It's orderly. The heart is synchronized. It's orderly. It's driving new energy to the brain. Once energy moves into the heart, our research, as well as other research, shows that it amplifies energy into the brain. Now you have a different awareness. You're feeling differently. You're thinking differently because you're at a different level of consciousness. So getting to that point where you're self-regulated, you no longer live in lack. You no longer live in separation. In fact, you're no longer needing anything out there to bring you joy or happiness. It's actually coming from within. So now you're more tolerant with people. You're less reactive. You don't really want to emotionally react because you like the way you feel. Wow. Now the game is on. You're out of the bleachers. You're on the field. And in the beginning, yeah, it takes a little work. But over time, you start practicing that. All of a sudden, when you feel that way and you're no longer needing it from your outer world, you're going to be more unconditional with everybody in your life. You're not going to want to lose this feeling. You're going to say, I feel so good that I'll forgive you. I don't really care because nothing's worth losing this feeling. And so people work for it and they covet it and they learn how to maintain it. And it's not just about doing the meditation and then getting up and getting on the freeway and flipping people off or judging your coworker the next moment. You're doing that meditation to change your state of being, and then your job is to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day. And when you do, get ready. Something unusual, something different, some synchronicity, some coincidence, some opportunity is going to show up in your world. That's the law. And then all of a sudden you start believing you're more of the creator of your life. You could actually anticipate the thought before it's coming when you get good at this. You're like, oh, no, not going to go there, because you're so aware of those thoughts now. Because nerve cells that no longer fire together no longer wire together. So you begin to dampen down the connections in your brain that have to do with the old self. You're no longer having the same thought that's producing the same chemical that's signaling the body to feel a certain way. You're disrupting that process. In the beginning, yeah, that's uncomfortable. The body's been in that familiar state. And so you remember the event, you feel the emotion, you're conditioning your body more into the past. And so then what we know is that getting people out of that state, bringing them up to the present moment, when they start letting go, when they finally let go, the freedom that they feel, the joy that they feel, causes them to naturally feel these elevated emotions. So the overcoming process, that is such an important element. And thinking the same way, acting the same way, feeling the same way, and wondering why your life isn't changing. And that's the work.